Hang on, everybody, hang on. We are recording and we're saying hello to Snooky.
Hi, Snooky.
Hey,
All right.
Oh, hey, Snooky, before I forget, I have two email addresses for you and I can never remember which one. What's the access?
Sconset Susie at Yahoo.
Sconset Susie, okay.
Yeah.
I'll delete,
SUZY.
yeah. Can I delete the other one?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I declare we have a quorum present and public comment, seeing none. Approval of minutes. The minutes from our December 21st, 2021 meeting were circulated. Any, yes, Lee?
Through an error on the part of your secretary, Bill Gritter was not recorded in the draft as being present. That's fixed. You're voting on a revised draft that does have, shows Bill to be present.
Right.
Thank you, Lee.
Minutes look good to me.
Good. Okay.
Motion to accept.
I'm sorry.
Motion to accept.
Oh, good. Thank you. Second.
Second.
Okay, good.
I will.
All in
I
favor?
got two things to deal with. Snooky moved and who seconded? Bill.
Bill and Phil.
Everybody.
Okay.
Everybody. Okay.
And we've
So-
got
Phyllis Choice.
coming into the room.
Right. And so we have a motion and a second, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Just hang on, Alan.
I'm sorry, Lee?
We have just admitted
Oh, Ed and Phyllis.
Phyllis. Okay, go.
Greetings, Ed.
Hello, Alan. Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah, same to you. And Phyllis, welcome. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our December 21st meeting. I'll do a roll call vote. Lee,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Nookie,
Aye.
Lee.
You got me.
I'm sorry, I already got you. Rick
Aye.
and Bill.
Aye.
Good. Okay, those minutes.
Hang on, Alan. We also have,
Oh, there's Stephen. Oh, wait, no.
Stephen's not a member. We've got Alan, Bill, Snooky, Rick, Ed Gillum, Phil Smith, and Rob Rennie. And then we've got Phyllis and Steve Arsenault.
Correct.
Okay.
Rick Hansen.
Okay, next item, Ken Grant. I don't see Ken here. So I assume he doesn't have anything to report as far as the two things that I was curious about were the update on the sidewalks and the road projects. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. I did notice that they had taken down quite a few trees on Pleasant Street, the section of the sidewalk that's missing from Gardner Prairie Way down to the other road.
Williams.
that's up there.
In the Phelan land.
Yeah, so I noticed that there were that they essentially it looked as though they were clearing a lot down there. So perhaps that's an indication that that section of missing sidewalk will be constructed at some point. Okay, the map project the Chapter 91 public access map and so on. The locations for the public way monuments. Lee and I are going to get together to work out a plan. Wait a minute, I'm getting into the next item.
Those are two, Alan, those are two separate things, I think.
Yeah, they're two separate items. All right, as far as the Chapter 91, the public access, the map and so on, we seem to be making progress on that. The work that Phil's done with the GIS department, trying to get that get those items together.
But that's not Chapter 91.
No, that's the public act. That's the map project.
Right.
But there was a map included with the minutes of the last meeting, the Chapter 91
Right,
locations, license locations.
exactly.
Alan, news report from admissions. Ken Beaugrand is now on the line.
Oh, Ken.
Yeah, Steve just forwarded me the invite, so I was able to get on.
Oh, good. So Ken, any news on the takings, specifically Franklin Street and Stone Alley?
No, nothing further on Franklin Street or Stone Alley. What we have put on the warrant for this year is the taking and disposition of the property out at Red Barn and Sheep Pond Road, the property at 167 Surfside Road where the old railroad bed is, to address one of the title issues that are caused by one of the old problems with the Chagru plans in terms of being able to clear title out there and make sure that everybody continues to have access off of the different lots out there. Then a taking and disposition to the land back with respect to Dorset Road out in Tom Nevers over the existing easement to be able to satisfy access out over that, out to the land back land by the ocean. Then the warrant article with respect to the paths down on Eel Point, the old trails that are out there with which abut the both on part of them abut land back land, but most of them report abut conservation land, and to make sure that we correct the title to those so that we in fact preserve the access and the ability to use those trails to walk out both to the harbor and to the ocean. Then a taking and disposition of Wee Weeder Avenue underneath at the base of the route of the airport property there, in terms of being able to show that there's continued access across that, because there is some problem with respect to the title of those properties not in the proper names, so that there is an ability to come across from the left side to the right side when you're looking at from the ocean. And then the taking disposition of portions of Westchester Street all the way out from the animal hospital out to Wannacomet, and address the issues with respect to the problems on the unbuilt portion of it, where some of the neighbors have in fact sort of encroached on the property. And I think that is a kind way of saying what's happened. But anyway, what we wanted to do is we want to establish the correct width of the property and the nature of where the trails are, because of the fact that the land bank wants to be able to have title to those, to be able to continue with all of the walking trails through there. And they won't necessarily all have to go down through Westchester Street, but we need to give them all of Westchester Street. And we're working on consideration in terms of what comes back to us. And then the last one is a home rule petition with respect to Ames Avenue, where in fact there is a property that was supposed to have been disposed of to the people a number of years ago. And there was a problem with respect to the title. We're trying to get the home rule petition to straighten that out. There's a person that's already built on the property as we agreed to give it to him. So all of those things are going to be recommended as selectmen articles with respect to moving forward at this year's town meeting. In addition, there are.
And good afternoon, it's Ed Gillum. You just called me. I'm in a town board meeting at the moment, so I will listen
Ed,
to a
can you
voicemail
mute?
if you leave me, but I will not be able to call you back till after 5:30, which I assume you'll be called by then.
I'm sorry, Fox.
I'll
Ed
catch up with you
Gillum, can you
tomorrow.
mute?
Bye now, and thank you for the call.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ken. We could hear you, Ed. Apologies.
And there are two citizens articles we've taken a look at. And
Before you start on that, Ken, let me recapture the very first taking I missed.
it was Red Barn, and it's the Sheep Pond Road area. It's the transaction that we have to do. This is the property. This is the problem that has arisen because of, we've had to do the agreement with the owners on the head of Plains in order to provide access to Sheep Pond Road on the northwestern part next to the ocean. And so what we have done in working with the residents out there, we've gotten an agreement from Conservation Foundation and from the people at Coastal Resiliency with respect to the location of a new road that will go in over land, Nantucket Conservation Foundation property, to provide access to the owners there. And the transaction will be in exchange of some of the paper roads out there and a transfer of our rights to the property at Alter Rock to the Conservation Foundation for them to take over the administration of that, and then developing agreements with all of the abutters as to the easements that are necessary to be able to provide access, with the plan being at the end of the day that we will eventually abandon the one road that the town has out there, so that the access to all of those properties will be over easements over Nantucket Conservation Foundation land, and the town won't own any of the roads or paper roads out there. So it's a way to be able to provide a solution that creates a win-win for the town and for the owners. I think what's really important to understand is that this is a process that will probably take close to 2 years from start to finish. We're into year one. We have about 2 more years to do, and it will be done with easements and other similar transactions to what was done previously with the creation of Sheep Pond Road in the first place, the last time or the first time that this issue came up with respect to access.
Thank you, Ken. Just to recapture, after that, it was Dorset Road, Eel Point Road.
After that, it was 167 Surfside Road.
Oh, okay.
Which is where the old railroad bed is. And that's an issue with respect to title there caused by some of the old Chagru plans. And that is designed to address title and make sure that none of the properties out there are landlocked as a result of what's transpired over the years. Then the next one was Dorset Road in Tom Nevers. Then the next one was Eel Point with respect to the walking path. The next one was Meter underneath the airport. The next one was Westchester Street from the animal hospital all the way out to Wannacomet. And the last one was the Ames Road home rule petition.
Excellent. Thank you, Ken. Now, you got 2 citizens that you wanted to talk about.
There are 2 citizens. One which is respect to the property at on the road to the airport, the Noverdeer little complex. Right when you turn right onto the road to the airport on the right-hand side, there those 7 or 8 houses in there, and there's a driveway that goes through, and around the exterior of those properties is landlocked land that has no public purpose or anything like that. So the object of that would be for that to be able to be acquired and then disposed of to the homeowners in the association. And then there was another one from Linda Williams with respect to property. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it's over in Augie land in terms of addressing an issue with respect to access over there. And we reviewed both of those, and both of those make sense in terms of there isn't a benefit to the town to keep those, and it makes sense for the town to be able to do that because it creates an ongoing benefit to the town with respect to better access for emergency vehicles. We would be reserving easements with respect to the town for emergency vehicles.
That's great. Thank you, Ken.
Oh, I'm sorry. Rick and then Bill.
Oh, yeah, Ken, that's quite a list. A lot of work you put in. Alta Rock, is that the FAA building or what's?
No, the Alta Rock is the highest point out in off of Pulpus Road.
Yep.
And that's a 5 acre parcel that is dedicated, can only be used for recreational purposes. And what we need to do is we need to go to the state to get an agreement that it could be transferred from the town to the Conservation Foundation. And because it can only be used for open space purposes. And we need to get permission from the state to do that because the Conservation Foundation is a charter that would qualify for it, but it can't be done without the state approving it. And so that is part of the transaction that we're doing in terms of trying to facilitate the whole sheep pond resolution.
Great, thank you.
Good. Yeah, that's an important one. If you next time you're on top of Alta Rock, you'll see the rock, and then there's a plaque on it. This property donated by Henry Coffin and so on. It's the 5 acres at the top of the hill that Ken is referring to.
That is correct.
Yeah, and that's going to be a nice addition because it'll allow the foundation to be able to cut down some of the pines that are blocking the view up there.
Well, the other thing too is as Alan, as you know, the 5 acres is surrounded by Conservation Foundation land.
Exactly.
So we're an island in the middle of a parcel that is already all completely owned by the Nantucket Conservation Foundation.
Exactly. Good. Well, that's very encouraging to find all these things on the upcoming meeting. Bill?
Yeah, one question, Ken. I couldn't quite hear the Ames Ave
Yeah,
issue.
there's an issue there with respect to the mining property on Ames Avenue. That property, there is 2 small parcels that were supposed to be deeded to the Ames as part of the transaction. And the problem is that the title to them needs to be straightened out because part of it is in the name of the town with respect to conservation. So we need to have a home rule petition to be able to get an agreement that we can follow through on the obligation that was made with respect to the acquisition of that property and that was paid for by the Meinke family as to the Ames Avenue property. And it's a home rule petition that needs to go to the state. And because the disposition has already been done, but we've got to get approval from the state to be able to in fact include the portions that had some conservation restriction on it.
So
Ken, do
was
you have a number on Ames Avenue?
I don't, in the draft warrant, there is the language of the home rule petition. I don't have it in front of me. So.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you, Ken. That was it's an encouraging.
It's been a fairly hectic 3 weeks.
Yeah, I can imagine. Plus, you have a few other things working, I know. So, okay. Any questions for Ken before we turn him loose? Great, Ken. Thank you so much for checking in with us.
You're more than welcome. And what you guys are doing is really, really important because it is really helpful to me and to town understanding sort of your sense of focus and your sense of providing a direction as to the priorities, because that's really, really important for us in terms of putting the time and energy into making this stuff happen. So
great. And if there's anything that our committee can do, anything from our committee to support any of those, let me know and we'll
for sure.
we'll take it out.
Okay,
Good.
thanks very much.
All right, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, goodbye.
Okay, that brings us back to chapter 91. let's go to number 5 on the agenda first. That's the statement regarding Chapter 91, the local licensing that Rick drafted. And we sent copies of that around. Any comments on the draft letter that Rick sent regarding Chapter 91? This is the article presented by our state senator and the representative to include the word recreation in the Chapter 91 law. Or yes, Phil?
I would find it helpful in terms of context, if you could have maybe as an appendix to the letter, the full language of section 1 and section 2. Now, I'm assuming that's not 10 pages each, but it would be very helpful to see where those words are actually located in the language. Otherwise, we're talking about a word without seeing how it's presented in the section.
That's a good point. And remember, Ken Bogran, when we discussed this, I think last month or the month before, mentioned that there are a number of other issues by putting that word recreation in there. And the town, as I understand it, or the select board, I should say, is looking at the language to get around the issue of, if they put recreation in there, the feeling was it was too broad. There would be a number of lawsuits that property owners would bring and so on. So,
Alan, just to be clear, was that from the select board? Did they discuss it in public?
no, they haven't. Let me recall.
I know Ken commented, but I thought it was almost a personal public comment and not necessarily the town's official position. I understood his comments and they're fair.
Yeah, no, I agree. And my assumption is that Ken is advising the select board on that issue. So far as I know, yes, the select board obviously has discussed this amongst themselves, or I'm assuming they have discussed it among themselves. And they're getting input from Ken Bogran. They're probably getting input from a lot of other sources, or from other sources, let's put it that way.
I don't,
okay, Bill Ledley.
I don't recall seeing it on the select board agenda. So I mean,
No.
maybe they're doing workshops, but I think other than somebody noting in a select board meeting, that these two reps had filed something, I don't think that they've discussed it at all, because I'm sure there'd be references to some of the ongoing issues and the concerns and whatever that Ken talked about, but there'd be some sort of lengthy discussion. And to date, I don't recall ever seeing it.
Yeah, it definitely hasn't been on the select board's agenda that I'm aware of for at least the last couple of months. So, Lee, did you have a comment?
I did. It's a suggestion on organization of the letter. Rick, it's a great letter. I would not remove any of it. However, as it gets longer and longer, I would suggest a 4 or 5 or 6 line executive summary to go right on top, so that during the meeting, the members of the select board can see what it is that we're recommending. Not ever to say that select board members don't always read their packets, but if it gets lengthy, I'm not sure they read to the end.
But that's always a good point.
Yeah. Phil?
The other comment I had is the paragraph that it's right under the listing of section 1, section 2, where it says the committee has discussed the impacts of this change. And then there's a phrase down below, the primary, while the original purpose of the ordinance is well known, the primary focus no longer serves the public purpose for which it was adopted. And then it has, I guess, in parentheses, access to intertidal zone for purposes of fishing, fouling, and navigating. Well, I can certainly think today, I mean, you would why I would think fishing and navigating would be fouling. I don't know so much, but I could see people fishing from the wet sand, you know, surf casting or whatever, and navigating, maybe bringing a boat up into the wet sand, you know, to so I don't see those as being out of date.
So I think that's a good comment. There's probably a better way to address that, which maybe it's an expansion of the use over time or something along those lines, but I hear you. I think the navigating is one that's a little different. I mean, there was a lot of sort of Boston Harbor stuff implied with that, which doesn't seem quite so critical to the, 95% of our beaches, which are not in harbors, so.
Well, I just saw the navigating as a shorthand way of saying that you could pull your boat up and just stick a little anchor in the wet sand. If you wanted to go swimming or something, I don't know.
All right, Ed, and then Bill.
I agree with Phil and actually with Rick as well. I think they're all applicable maybe in a more modernized sense. I mean, I think all it would take is one word, soul, before those three things. In other words, it's not easy just for the sole purposes of ABC. That would cure the discrepancy here or the inconsistency we're hearing here.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Good.
What
Okay.
is foul, when we say fouling, is that
Gunning.
bird hunting?
Yeah.
Yeah, hunting for ducks.
Yeah, shotguns.
So you have somebody in front of your house on the wet sand firing away, that's okay?
Yeah, they can already do it.
Well,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you know.
Right. It's gunning.
You know, but I mean, just to, you could beat this into the ground, but I mean, for example, by saying just strolling as opposed to recreation, I mean, what about joggers? I mean, you see that all the time, and people might, people would be jogging along on the beach on the wet sand. That would be a form of recreation, right?
Well, that could come under the enjoyable pastime part.
Yeah. Well, the whole point of what we're attempting to do here is to get passage, to be able to walk on the wet sand between the low and the high tide. And of course, this goes back to the issue out in Matticat with out at Little Neck there. Bill, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think I think back to some of that conversation on that piece of property that you just brought up, and some of the dialogue at the time centered around that whole strolling section, and strolling was an all-encompassing word. Did it include walking? Did it include jogging? Bird watching, whatever. And it seems as though they've settled on the word recreation as a headline with all of those things underneath it. So I think that's part of the dilemma, is finding something that is a recognized word. And we know that once the lawyers get involved, there's always going to be, oh, this isn't covered by that. So it's going to be a tricky process, I think, to get this squared away.
Ed?
I think Bill is definitely right. It's very broad even now. It is nice that it's now defined what is recreation, but what's an enjoyable pastime? I mean, that's about as subjective as you can come. So I don't know.
Well, I
Well,
think it's a practical matter. A lot of these issues come up through regulations and through license language that are specific to sites and so on. So but I hear you. And I think when I talk to Dylan, it's clear to me that, our little incident in Madigan is not the sole reason that they wanted to bring this up. They have a lot of, between Dylan and Julia, a lot of beach front in their districts. And I think they have heard from many people, not just a few people on Nantucket, about these issues. And he recognizes this is not just going to go through probably the way it's written and could well be modified and drafted after hearings and so on. But they had to select language to get started. And that's my impression of where they are. And we'll see how that goes. These are all good concerns. On the other hand, if you don't get started, you won't ever get any place. So,
Yeah. Ed?
I would, as a starting point, support using the word recreation and just leave it at that.
Okay. Ed?
Though there will be a definition required at some point, I think. But again, if we pass the article on nude sunbathing, you could have a nude sunbather in front of your house as well. So
yeah,
I guess that would be
we can have sunbathing in the intertidal zone.
maybe a nude sunbather with a shotgun in
You got a
it.
warrant for that already.
So could I ask you a question just procedurally? I'm happy to work on a summary, and I like the use of the word soul was very helpful, and it's easy enough to add an appendix with the full text of sections 1 and 2. I had a couple of questions of my own that I kind of highlighted here, but each one of those adds text and more context, and I'm not sure they're necessary. The points are clear, and if there's questions from people, we can have answers to some of those in our back pocket, so to speak. And that's one way to approach it. You just take those yellow ones out.
I would agree. I think that was the one thing that, when I was going through the original, that I thought, all right, so yes, Lee?
I think I'm about to ask the same question you did. I get the feeling that Rick would be within a day or two of the ability to offer up a close to final draft. Do we wait a whole month to approve, or can we give him our approval now in anticipation of that draft?
Good point. My sense would be what we're doing here. This is a draft to the select board, and it's reflecting our feeling as the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee regarding the public access on the intertidal land all around the island. So I think as long as the committee is agreed to the thrust of the letter to answer this question about access across the wet sand, I think we can either approve, if that's the will of the committee, we can approve the message that's contained in this letter and authorize Rick to touch up the draft or whatever needs to be done. And then we'll make that an official document, an official recommendation to the select board. Yes, Lee?
In danger of getting my foot in my mouth, I'd like to offer a motion that the Committee on Roads and Right-of-Way approves the sense of the letter in support of the word recreation in the statute. And that authorizes Rick Atherton and Chair Alan Reinhardt to submit the edited letter to the select board.
Great. I would entertain that as a motion. Is there a second? Phil? Great. Phil seconds. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion?
I think we just had it.
I think so too, but yeah, again, it's amazing because we've talked about this over, I don't know, for years, I think ever since I've been on this committee and certainly longer than that. Good. Okay, so we'll go to a vote. We'll do a roll call vote on the motion. Any question about what the motion is? Seeing none. All right, Lee,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
and Snooky.
aye,
And chair votes aye as well. Okay, well, good. It'll be interesting to see how this goes because as Lee pointed out, this is not just a Nantucket issue. We have miles and miles of beaches all through the Commonwealth that are all impacted by this. So, okay, that's number 5. All right, back to number 4, the map project. The question that I came up with when I was looking over our minutes and our discussion so far on the issue of Chapter 91, our main goal is to get the wait a minute, let me get clear on what I'm trying to say here. We're trying to clarify the where people can access the beach. And the town has that wonderful beach access map and so on that we have a copy of now, where all those beach access points are. And the question then is, what do we want as far as this map? How are we going to distribute it? Who's going to have access to the map? What's the purpose of it? And I just want to put that out for discussion amongst the committee as to where we want to end up with this project. So I'm envisioning a map that would have all the access points where there is public access to the beach. And that would include the conservation properties, because that makes up most of the beach, of course, all the town beaches and so on. And wherever presumably there is a one big beach program, those access points would also be indicated. Rick, did you have a question?
No, it's interesting. I would think that some of these questions are not easy to answer, like the foundation or the land bank beaches. There are specific paths that are sort of the recommended access points rather than everybody climbing over every dune. So I think what we're trying to do is just what you said, Alan, to have an indication so the public knows where they're welcome. I hesitate to use that word because we're not always advertising some, well, let's be honest, some access points as opposed to others, even though there is legal access. So we sort of have to be careful about how we approach that. Anyway, I think that's the intent. And the land bank and foundation maps are great guides for us to use. And they might be helpful because they own the majority of our beaches. The town hardly owns any, quite frankly.
All right. Yes, Ed?
It would be nice to ultimately to have a map that shows where there is access
Right.
or possible access, and where there is also marked access. So they're kind of like one's a subgroup of the other. I mean, there's access over the stretch of land bank land or Conservation Foundation land. And that would be just saying that there's possible access. It may not be marked, it may not tell you where it is. You kind of use your common sense, but there's also where the marked access is. And I think part of our purview here is to make sure the marked access is still accessible and visible, that you can see where it is and that it hasn't overgrown and you can get to the beach.
And marked.
Right. And marked, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Maybe two examples might help us. One is the access points along Baxter Road. And for example, there's a marker, I think it's between 67 and 69, Alan, along that hedge. And
69 and 71.
it's just it's a little tiny 3-foot wide walkway, but there is a marker at that one.
There is,
And that had to be sort of negotiated. And then there are other Chapter 91 licenses where access is required to be available that don't have any public indication. And I like to use the lot next to the White Elephant as an example. And you never know that we may have rights to access the beach across that property. And I'm not sure whether we do or don't. I'm just using it as an example. And those take a fair amount of time to identify what those access rights are. And are they actually in the license,
Good, good point, yeah. Ed and then Lee.
Sure.
Actually, Rick, that beach you were talking about next to the White Elephant, there was a deal in place to buy that, not the person who now owns it. And part of the reason it fell apart was because of the Chapter 91. They weren't willing to wait for the time period to clear up the Chapter 91. The new person who bought it is required to do this. And they will, I assume, when they go to develop the property, there will be some markings down there.
Which would be very nice. Thank you. Good point.
Exactly.
Um,
Yes, Lee?
Just very quickly, in support of Rick's comment about marked and unmarked access, returning to Baxter Road, there are several stairways down to the beach that are licensed, and they are publicly available. And I think the way we know they're publicly available is there's no sign saying private, no admittance.
Right.
But there's not a sign that says, "Hey, you're welcome to walk down these steps." But they are available.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, there is one stairs down to the beach, midway, it's around the number 50s, where there's a sign that says "Welcome" on the stairs down to the beach.
That's 53.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like what people do to keep people claiming something by adverse possession. But, and there's another one, I think, is there one behind the Wade cottages somewhere that indicates?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. And that one is marked. That one has a sign.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the only two stairs that I'm aware of that are marked. I believe that when we did the Wisconsin footpath work, this was what, 6-7 years ago, whenever that was.
It was just yesterday.
It was what?
It was just yesterday.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I keep thinking that, but yeah. When we did that work, remember we had Deanne and Harvey work together on that report that they did for the Wisconsin footpath, and we identified. They went to the Conservation Commission to see which of those stairs were had permits, first of all, and in the permit, whether there was was public access. The idea was that if they did have to go to the planning board or who must be the Conservation Commission to do that, that they would have to provide, the Conservation Commission would provide public access. And I think that's one of the loose ends, because they aren't marked. The only one that I say that I know of that is marked is the one at in 52 of it. Yeah. Yeah. Ed?
Was 69 where Rick was talking about between 69 and 71, where you have the hedge and the path back to the road with the bluff. Was that one of the paths? I mean, those stairs don't exist anymore. So, I mean, whether they can't be replaced either. So but was that one of the marked public ways at one time?
I believe it was. Where the path ends right now, it's at number 67, that the address that you just mentioned. And there, unfortunately, the neighbor on one side has planted a new hedgerow along there, which in a matter of a year or two is going to be overflowing into the way. There was a question raised about number 72, which is I believe 1 or 2 houses down from where the path currently ends.
Right, 71.
71.
Yeah, yeah, 71. And there was some question as to whether that was officially taken or not. Now, in looking at it, it's totally grown over. There's a big massive, I don't know if it's privet or something, that's right in that roadway there. When we put the sign at the end of the footpath saying, this is the end of the footpath and has that little poem on it, this is at the far end of it, and then it goes out onto Baxter Road at that point. That's where it goes through the hedge cutting there. There is a flush public way monument down on Baxter Road, and there's another one up on the path for that one. The issue at number 71, at this point, there's just no way to get over to that next road or that next way. And as I say, I don't believe that one was taken. Rick, did you have a?
Yeah, I don't know where to find the official documents about that taking it on 71, Alan. But I thought I would mention one other thing that just so people
The
know.
overlapping strip broke loose, bro.
Snooky needs to mute too.
Yeah, I
But I've
know.
got them tied to the back of your pickup truck, so they aren't gonna go anywhere. Yeah,
Because most of the stairs go down over town-owned property.
Right-of-way meeting now on Zoom.
Let's see, can we?
I've muted Snooky.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
Right when he comes back, we have to unmute him.
Yeah, I will. Okay.
So in addition to Conservation Commission approvals, because they were building within 100 feet of the beach or whatever the rule is, the town technically has to issue a license to permit those stairways to travel over town property.
Right.
So there are 2 approvals required. The last sort of definitive statement by the town, and I'd be happy to circulate this, you'd find it interesting, was done by Jeff Carlson. I think it was in 2015. And he itemized each stairway, whether it had a Conservation Commission approval and whether it was appropriately licensed by the town. And I'm not sure there have been any changes since then. So that's a helpful instrument, and the town hasn't gone out of its way. It takes a fair amount of effort to do all those licenses, but no one's complaining. But it has to do with the public access question we were just discussing on those stairways.
Good point. Rick, you say you have that list. Can you circulate that?
Yeah, I'll find the memo Jeff prepared, and that's as close as we'll come, I think.
Excellent. Good. Phil? And then
No, I mean, we could spend hours discussing each one of these little things. So I think the point is that before we send this to the printer and before we put our name all over this, this is a piece of work, and I think it's like a site work. A couple of us are going to have to go and confirm physically in person what the heck we're looking at and what the deal is with each of these access things, because as soon as we have something distributed, it's going to be, we're going to be reading about, our names are going to be in the Inky every week.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's an important point, Phil, that we do need to ground truth the, if that's the right phrase, to those different points. Other comments?
Yes.
Snooky, sorry.
I dropped off a copy of the original subdivision plan with Mark Willett this morning, considering that mess that we're dealing with the water company. It's the land court plan for Baxter Road coming down almost to Bayberry Lane, and it's dated 1890.
Ah. So that would be the original,
Subdivision by,
yeah,
by-
by flag.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So Mark at the water company has that map or has
Yes,
that
I dropped it off this morning.
document? All right, well, that'd be interesting to take a look at that. Ed, did you have a comment?
No, I didn't. I was just listening. I was shaking my head because I remember I looked at that one time, the flag,
Right,
all the title stuff at one time, way back.
right, yeah. Okay,
So,
All right.
Alan,
yeah, Bill?
following up on Phil's comment, before we get, or at some point, I guess, I don't know when that'll be, but it might be a good idea that we take this list and assign X number of sites to members or whatever of those that can get out and about or here, so that you know, it's going to be a time-taking task, and to think that one person or two are going to be able to do this is, no, it's not going to happen in a timely fashion. So at some point, we may want to do that and then have a report back date.
Right. So you're suggesting that we actually get some volunteers to do site visits. Now, before we do that, we'd have to get a list of all the different points we want to check. Yes, Lee?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think Bill's got a good idea. To start, Alan and you and Phil, can you draw up the list, see how many there are, and then divide them up?
I think that we should have at a minimum 2 and maybe 3, because one person looking at it may not have, you know, the whole story as to what the background is or.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want to be the only person to have my name attached to something that results in a picket line or something.
We'll put Phil's name at the bottom of the map.
With yours as chairman.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Because this is good. I think this is going to be sensitive. And I think for some people, it's going to be controversial. They're going to think this is going to be something they've never heard of before. And it's like, what is going on here? And all of a sudden, you know, they're looking at our committee as giving the general public the right to invade their property. So we got to be really, you know, we got to have this buttoned up.
No, I agree. I agree. We definitely want to, we don't want to put out anything to the public that is going to get anyone or get the town into any trouble, for sure. Yes, Lee?
And that's going to be my very point. Once we have this all buttoned up, should we ask somebody in the town to review and approve? Jeff Carlson as Director of Natural Resources, Libby as Town Manager, but somehow or another that it's been reviewed.
Absolutely.
I would suggest that we do this, we have a base list of the access points and so on. And at that point, we would certainly want to review it with Jeff Carlson, probably with Andrew Vorse, and anyone else we can think of. I'm just trying to think of what the sticky points would be. One example that comes to mind is at the end of, the road off of Pulpus Road, when you make a left hand right before Boar's End Farm. Not Chacamo.
Gardner Road?
No, not Gardner. It's before you get to Gardner Road. God, I've been up and down it so many times.
Shimo Pond Road?
Shimo Pond, thank you. Shimo Pond. And at the end of Shimo Pond Road, there's a parking area and there's an access point down to the beach at that point. Now, my understanding from a couple of years ago when we looked at this, that's private property. So the question is, well, can people walk along the beach? Well, of course they can, because they do. And of course, the beach ends not too far down as you go down to Pimmy's Point. As you go the other direction, of course, you come to the land bank property at Cathcart Road. You come to there are other public areas along there. Lee, yes.
Yeah, Alan, I thought that we had resolved that very carefully with the Shimo Association. That land belongs to the association and is available only to members of the association. Therefore, would not go onto our list.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the point, that there are places like that at Shimo Pond Road. All right, well, I think once we generate a list of all the public access points, two things that will certainly help as far as any public way monuments that we want to add to our existing collection. So I guess that's really the next steps, to make a list of where we think all the public access points are, and then vet those particular, vet that particular list to see, to see what's on the ground there, and see just what the situation is as the next step in developing the map, whatever map that we're going to be creating for this. Does that make sense? Yeah, Snooky?
If you and Phil need a third party, put me on it.
The third party?
Yeah, for the group to view those past.
Oh, I see.
A lot of them are.
Gotcha. Okay.
Definitely for the East End, Stuckey.
Yeah,
And we got Bill for the West End, us people in town, we need help.
Great. Okay.
You might want to reverse that because of self-interest.
I'm far enough away from it.
Yeah, right. Good. Okay, is there anything else on that item? Seeing none, that moves us to number 6, old, new, other business. And any member comments? No old, new, other business? Nothing I can think of either, so. Anything else to come before the committee this afternoon? Bill?
Non-related, but informational for all of us. anybody that thought that this summer was going to be less busy than last summer, evidently now that Rob got out of his meeting today, the steamship has just released their results of the bookings. And in the first day of reservations, they did 8,056 trips. The summer's almost booked out for weekends.
So do you really think the summer's going to be slower than?
Yeah.
It's all Rob's fault. We want to slow it down, Rob.
All I can say is people are booking early, which is what I've been telling them to do for years. So this is
Yeah.
Well, the DPW is working on, Steve didn't report it, but the DPW is working on lift access for First and Second Bridge. So depending on your visa, you will be able to go only certain ways on the Matticat Road.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, Ed, you just need to sell more property, that's all.
Yeah, right. Good. Okay, well, if there's nothing else to come before the meeting this afternoon, I declare we are at the end of our agenda and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank
So,
you all.
Thank
Turn
you.
off.
Recording.
all.
And so anything you say